Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed ready.
Contact, nice to be in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from atop a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. Thank you so much for joining us again tonight. It is Thursday night, June 20th on into the 21st as we head on into the late night here at the Fringe FM, and that's where we are live. We're live at KTLK Digital Broadcasting, the Fringe FM, every single night, 5 nights a week here. This is becoming a lot of fun. Like last night was a lot of fun. I want to thank Barbara for coming on the show. We got to talk to, it was kind of cool because it was like a guest, having a guest on and a listener. So I learned a lot, talked about some cool stuff, and got to know one of my listeners a lot better. So that was great. Tonight we're going to be talking about magic, ceremonial magic in the digital age, egregores, all kinds of things with Ramsey Dukes, also known as Lionel Snell. He'll be on coming up, and it's kind of early in the UK over there, so he's going to be coming on in the second hour. So this is going to be kind of different. So I'll get to rant in the first hour when we have our guest on at the last part. But I'm just grateful that he's coming on because he's super intelligent and he knows quite a bit. The guy's been studying magic for many years, for a very long time, and is also a member of the OTO, and he's written books on Abramel and the Mage. So check him out. It's going to be cool. If you're into magic, I think you'll like the show tonight. This show was also brought to you by Get the Tea at getthetea.com. Ancient Life Oil, the best CBD oil on the planet, hands down, at ancientlifeoil.com, and preparewiththefringe.com, where you can get a month supply for only $147. It's pretty cheap. And anybody that orders that too, I send out a free t-shirt. It's a month supply, but they got more stuff there. They got all kinds of stuff when it comes to prepping, like water purifications, a purification water bottles. My favorite thing is the radio, though, the little wind-up radio. You can also support this show by donating, which really helps us. If you go to the website, there's a donate button there, and I want to thank, we had some new donors last night that donated for the first time, so I really appreciate what you're doing, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you want to keep up with the UFO field, which is kind of crazy right now, there's all kinds of stuff going on, a little bit of animosity, a little bit of conflict, but that's good if you ask me in the UFO field. But the best place to go searching for all that information is ufoseekers.com, which is backed and supported by the Fringe FM. You can also go to their YouTube channel at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. And if you've had a sighting you'd like to report, you can give them a call at 661-UFO-7889. Yeah, so tonight we're going to be on the topic of magic, and I think, and I talked to Ramsey yesterday on the phone, and I think the most important thing that we're going to talk about is we don't want to get into too much jargon. And just like last night I was discussing how I think that when we speak to people about jargon. It kind of confuses him, but that doesn't mean I won't bring up jargon. But hopefully he'll correct me, so we can kind of understand how this stuff really works. Because if I was to come to you and threw a bunch of symbols at you and said, do this, 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 and that, and here's a pentagram, and here's a circle, and here's this stuff, do that, and it just doesn't make sense to people. Not only that, it scares the hell out of them. So you got to understand this thing from a psychological level, from a spiritual level, from a literal level. You got to understand it all. And I'm not saying go do it, because I'm definitely not saying that, but it's good to understand it. The biggest important difference that I think I would like people to understand is the difference between magic and ceremonial magic. And we'll get into that too. Like they're the same thing, but ceremonial magic is like just a part of it, right? And it's one of the older styles of magic, which is Renaissance magic. And that's kind of the stuff that I try to talk about a lot, but I don't bring that up enough. I don't really explain, like magic, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. That's not really what I'm talking about. Or lighting a candle and saying a prayer. Kind of, I guess you could say, but more like the stuff that's like dark and mysterious that everybody's always afraid of, those kind of things. Real quick, I wanted to tell you, like, it's obvious now that Tex-Neck, what I was calling Tex-Neck, it's not really, I don't know if they're calling it Tex-Neck, that's just what I heard it was called, but apparently there's horns that are growing out of young people's heads, and they're blaming phones on this stuff. But, we were talking about this a long time ago, but now it's got everybody's attention, and everybody uses mobile phones. That's a given, but we just need to stay off the damn things, put them up every now and then. But there's a new research in biomechanics that are suggesting that young people are developing horn-like spikes in the back of their skulls, and they've got x-rays with these spikes coming out the back of their skulls. It's wild. And it's a bone spur, which is caused by the forward tilt of the head, which shifts the weight from the spine to the muscles at the back of the head, and it causes the bone to grow, connecting the tendons and ligaments and all that stuff. And it happens from weight transfer, that head forward looking at the phone. And so we're growing a new bone in our knee, and I think that's from, just all of us getting bigger. And now we're growing a bone in the back of our head because we're leaning forward too much. Like, have you guys ever seen that movie WALL-E? WALL-E, the cartoon? WALL-E, right? That's where we're headed. We're going to be the humans in these little chairs with screens in our faces just moving around because we don't want to do anything. They already have a chair like that. I saw a picture one the other day. I'll have to put it up. But that's where we're headed. So another thing I was wanting to talk to Ramsey about is magic in the digital age. Like, how is this stuff affecting us, and how can we use it to affect us? And I was watching his YouTube channel, and he's got some good points about, AI and how it's coming to the internet and how it's changing our society. I mean, we're being watched 24/7. Every day it gets creepier to me. It really does. I just can't count high enough now how many times I've been talking about something and it pops up on my screen. I don't know who's watching us. It's supposed to be just algorithms and artificial intelligent machines and bots. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what they're telling us. But I think would freak me out even more if there's a human on the other end of that thing. And I really think there is. But I don't want to get into much of the conspiracy stuff tonight. But I do want to talk about the digital age and what's coming and how it relates to these occult teachings, such as magic and NLP and using the brain and psychology. And last night we ended up, I think Barbara, her last question to me was, do you think that the occult, the paranormal, ufology, aliens, and all of that stuff is actually, it's all interconnected somehow? And I gave an example of when Aleister Crowley met this being that he called Aiwass, but he channeled a being called Aiwass, but he also met a being he called Lamb, which it's been a long time since I've read that. So, but there's been other cases. It's not just like Aleister Crowley. Like, for example, Grant Morrison, who's another magician, sort of a chaos magician. He invoked alien beings pretty much. He talks about it in one of his speeches where he went up to a certain place so he could talk to aliens and go to Zeta Reticuli, right? But you don't. It's hard to believe that stuff. It really is. But I think there's something I think there's something huge that happens when we tap into this. And a couple of days ago, I was going to talk to you about this crazy dream I had. The kind of dreams that when you wake up from, and this is related to magic, when you wake up from them, that you're glad that you woke up. We've all had those. Like you had a dream about somebody, I don't know, somebody who died, or you had a disease, or maybe your teeth were all busted out. That's a famous one, right? And and you wake up and you're so glad that you're out of that dream. Well, the reason why you're so glad that you're out of that dream, you wouldn't be so relieved if you didn't believe it was so real. Because when you're in that moment, you totally forget about this life. You totally forget about it. You're not the same. You're not that person anymore. You're that person in that dream. You're that life in that dream. Unless you become extremely lucid, which is another cool trick. But usually when you become lucid, you don't really know the other person. You just know you're dreaming. And so I brought up this thing about invocation. And the imagination is what I want to talk about here before we get Ramsey Dukes on. Because we think the imagination is just something for kids. It's like cereal, right? We just think it's for kids. Doesn't really mean anything. Well, if you consider the fact that you're in that dream, well, let me just tell you what happened to me. That way I'll give you a better example. So when I was younger, like maybe 5 to 6 years ago, no, it was longer than that. It was like 10 years ago, actually. I did something that I shouldn't have done. And I'll just tell you, I was dating a girl that was already taken in the biggest way possible, if you can imagine. And we'd kind of sneak around, stuff like that. Well, I had a dream that her I guess her boyfriend, husband, whatever, I don't know what you call them, because I didn't really know at the time. But I had a dream, right, that this guy figured it out. And so it's really weird because your dreams put everything together, but you don't really know that. So I'm sitting at Sonic and I'm eating a burger, and I'm like maybe 18 or 19 years old, and the girl walks up and she's talking to me, like leaning in the window like they do at Sonic when everybody's hanging out. I don't think anybody does that anymore, but they still did that when I was a kid. And she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Blah, 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 blah. And we're having a conversation. And, I kind of look over her head and I can see the guy there. And I said, "Hey, you know what? This guy's there. He's over there right now." And, anyways, something happens. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting on a train. Now, the weird thing is I don't remember the transition, but I'm sitting on a train. And the guy is up in front of me, like he's up on the next level train, like the next car or whatever. And I can see his head and I can see her head, and they're talking. And I can see them arguing. And it's trippy because I look to my right and my dad's sitting there. How the hell did he get there? So you don't think about things like that in a dream, right? And I'm going to relate this to the occult, imagination, and the digital age in here in just a second, but you don't think about things like that. And I said, "Hey, I think something's about to go down." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" So the dude gets up, the guy that's sitting in front of me, and he's got a gun, right? He's got a gun, and it's one of those guns that you open up and you put the bullet in, you shut it. It's like, it's not a shotgun. It's weird. It's like a breakover regular rifle, and he puts the bullet in. And he's walking back towards my train car. And I'm looking at him, and he's kind of picking the gun up like he doesn't really know who it is yet. He's still trying to figure out who this guy is that's messed around with this woman, And I look over to my right, and my dad's got a gun. He's got like a rifle. So I pick it up, and I pick up the rifle, and I aim it at him. And he starts looking, and as soon as he sees me, he, right when he dials in on me, he picks up the rifle and he looks at me, and I said, "Don't do it." I said, "Don't do it." And he as soon as he like locked it into his shoulder to aim down and look at me, I pulled the trigger and I shot him right in the head through his eye. And, and everybody in the train car freaks out, and I was like, okay, well, I defended myself. Right? I did. This is a dream if you're just tuning in. Cynthia said, I'm just tuning in. I hope this is a dream. Yeah, it is. But I defended myself. And I said, well, we got nothing to worry about. I mean, he was going to shoot me, right? And my dad said, I don't know. I think you're in trouble. I said, what do you mean I'm in trouble? He goes, well, you shot a guy. You killed him. I said, yeah, but he was going to shoot me. And he said, yeah, but you don't know who he was going to shoot. He was just looking around, acting like he was going to shoot somebody, and you shot him. Now, I don't know the real laws about this, but he had me thinking, like, okay, I really screwed up. I'm going to go to jail. The cops are going to come ask me about what happened. This is going to be a big deal. I don't know if I was in the right or not. I hope I am. And the whole time, I don't remember this life. I don't remember nothing. I don't remember anything about this. And so, long story short, I wake up, and I'm so freaking, like, glad that I woke up, that didn't really happen. Because my mind was telling me that was real. Now, I could see it, I could feel it, I could feel the emotions. Everything was real about it. That is locked into your imagination, right? That's the thing that people say is not that powerful. Well, when I was talking about invocations the other day, and we had Albert Nirenberg on, he was talking about hypnotizing people when they become the chicken. They really believe, like they take it seriously, man. It's not a joke. They're not laughing. They become the chicken, right? Well, these magicians, they become the chicken, so to speak. They tap into that place, that dream world that's so real and so powerful that you believe you're there. And not only can you tap into that, once you get into deep ritual, deep meditation, and deep altered states, you can get to that point. And then here's the crazy part, is that they do what's called theurgy, which I brought up earlier, and they invoke gods. Thoth, Isis, Horus, Set, whatever god it is. Some of them use different. I don't guess they have to be Egyptian. Those are just the ones I know off the top of my head. And they invoke these gods, and they don't just pretend that they're God. They are using their imagination, but by the time they're so dialed in to that point, they're in that world where they believe it. So I want you to imagine for a moment, if you can with me, that you've gone through a series or a set of, let's say, phone calls or something. And then that phone call gets you to this extension. And then that extension, you get to another office and you dial another extension. And that gets you somewhere. That's what ritual does, right? And ceremonial magic. To me, that's what it does. You just keep dialing extensions until you get into the network, till you get into the subsystem. And once you're in there and you invoke something, then you become that. Now, I've never, invoked a god or a demon or angel or anything like that, but I know that's what they do. I've heard them talk about it, seriously. I'm not playing. They get to this point where they really feel like that's who they are. Can you imagine what that feels like? If it's just as powerful, if the reality of it is just as powerful as it would be as if you were dreaming. Those dreams that you have, that you're glad, they're so real that you forget about this life. You become Thoth. You become the god, or you become the chicken, so to speak, like the hypnotist said. Now, if consciousness is what everybody says, right? If consciousness is this thing, and these are just things I'm thinking about, I don't know this for a fact, but if it is really what makes up the entire universe, and everything is a wave until it's focused on, then it becomes solid and it becomes, something or a particle, then you have to think that there is some type of big imagination that's making itself, so to speak, become the chicken. And that's what we're doing. It's a trippy thing to think about. But I think it's real. And that's why when you read religious texts and stuff, and they say in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word means logos. It's because it's like, when you look at the symbolism of that, really, it's just symbols and metaphors and programs. It's kind of like hypertext, you know, or whatever. When you put in a certain set of letters or whatever, and it puts out a picture. The same thing. So you're tapping into the subsystem. I know it sounds wild and all, but like, would you really even consider looking at magic and mysticism and all of the books written about it and all the rituals and meditations and all the stuff they do, if you just saw it on the surface, if you had no idea? Like, I can't do it that way. On the surface, it looks insane. But once you start to understand it, it doesn't look so insane. If that makes any sense. I feel like I'm rambling, but once you get to the meanings behind it, it makes sense, because you start seeing how it's running everything that we do. It's running all of the advertising companies and the big corporations and all the programs that they're pushing into our brain every day. Does that mean they know? Does that mean they're dark wizards in a tower somewhere and they know all about this? I don't know. Maybe they just know that stuff works and they just keep using it from, you know, testing and focus groups and stuff like that. Also want to, before we take a break here, I want to tell everybody that the new blog is up on the Fringe FM. It's the news/blog. And if you want to write an article for us, you can. All you got to do is send it to producer@thefringe.fm, or there's an actual, in the Fringe FM chat, there's a bunch of little chat rooms inside the server chat room. And there's one that says articles for the Fringe FM. And so Amanda put one up there today, and it's really good. It's about the shadow work. And I want to talk about that when we come back, and some of the experiences I had with that, which is some pretty wild, creepy stuff. But yeah, so I'm trying to set this thing up to where if anybody wants to express themselves through that blog or article, they can. And we get a ton of traffic there. I mean, we're pretty high up for certain key phrases in Google. So, you know, your article's probably going to get noticed, more than likely. And, you know, other blogs and other places will share it and stuff. So really, if you're thinking about becoming a content creator and you want to write, hit us up, send us the article and stuff, and then we'll put it up there for you. And real quick, basically what she did was she sent me the article. We put the images up. We kind of put the icing on the article, so to speak, and it's up there now. You can go check it out at thefringe.fm. Just click on the news page. Also, if you want to go into the Fringe FM chat, it's /chat, fringe.fm/chat. We'll be right back.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Alex books.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lionel Duquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
All right, everyone. This is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your northern self and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
I'm Joe Roop. Welcome back to Lighting the Void. We're live on the Fringe FM. If you're just tuning in, the show comes on every night between 9 p.m. Pacific and midnight, and then after that, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is on. And we just aired. I hope you guys got to hear it too. We aired Surviving the System. That came on before. I think it came on at a kind of a different time, but it was between the 7 and 9 o'clock hour there. And that was a fantastic show. So you guys go check that out, man. That's really good. It's kind of controversial, but it's a good show to check out. Also, J.D. Lewis' show. I want you guys to go check that show out too. The archive is up. So it's on Spreaker. I believe it's on Spotify, and it should be on iTunes as well. So all the shows that get broadcasted here, we put them up on the archives for the most part, unless we have a host that is doing subscriptions and stuff, which, by the way, we're going to be doing very, 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 very soon. Hopefully, I'm hoping in the next few days, but I don't want to make any promises. But that'll be all commercial-free archives plus extra content, audiobooks, stuff like that. So before the break, I was talking about the power of the imagination, and coming up here just shortly, we're going to have Ramsey Dukes as the author and magician. Also, is known, the other name known, he's known by is Lionel Snell. So you can look him up while you're listening to this. He did which is something I hope that he'll talk to me about, but I'm not sure how much he'll want to talk to me about. But he did a book about Abramelin, the Diaries of Abramelin, and that ritual is intense. All right. So anyways, before I was telling you guys about how this stuff works. And so they take, and I'll just go through like a battery. I'll just give you an example, because you always hear this stuff, right? You hear like, oh, the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, and, you know, invoking the archangels and all this stuff, right? But to a magician, the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, is just like brushing your teeth. It's not that big a deal. It's something you have to do, but it's just it's a part of the battery of rituals that you do. So they'll do something like that ritual, right? And then they'll do some type of grounding ritual, which there's one out there called the middle pillar. You can look that up. And then once they get in that, they get down deep. They're still going deeper and deeper into their mind and into their subconscious as they tap into all of the symbolic things. They're tapping into the system where you're not so much in the physical reality into that state, but a state where everything that works on the subconscious and symbols and all that stuff, you tap into that. And then you start going wherever you want to go, right? Some people just do meditation. That's basically, when I've done any of that stuff, that's basically what I do, is just meditate, or I'll do a prayer or something. Because I noticed the difference. I just want to tell you. Let me finish that real quick, too. So after they do their prayer, ritual, invocation, whatever they're trying to do, their operation, the climax of the operation, then they go back through the rituals again. So they'll do something else, and then another lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, right? So it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? It sounds kind of stupid. They do these rituals, but it taps into that part of your mind. You know, when I first read this stuff, I thought that when you did the rituals, you were actually drawing like a real circle in some invisible realm. I don't know about that now. I think it could be something else. I don't know. I really don't. I don't want to pretend to know, but I don't think it's definitely doesn't work like Harry Potter and all that stuff you see. Not even like really like Doctor Strange, even though there was some cool stuff about Doctor Strange that taps into the reality of certain things. It's not really like that either. But I think people just would, if you walked into a room and you saw somebody doing that, it would freak you the hell out, you know? Like back in the day, if they walked out in the woods or they stumbled upon, like if, I don't know, not the 50s. I'm talking about way before. Let's go back. And let's say the 1800s, maybe even before then, right? And say a child stumbled out in the woods and they saw some guy drawing a circle and doing a ritual, you know, drawing crosses in the air and pentagrams in the air and invoking certain angels and stuff. You know, he'd go run tell his dad, and his dad would tell his buddy. And the next thing you know, you got the whole town talking about it, and then they want to burn the guy at the stake. But we're not like that. We're in a digital age where we all have access to this information, so we can learn to understand it. And I'm not here to teach you magic or tell you to go do it, because I don't really do it. All I do is pray and meditate, to be honest with you. I don't do any of that really heady stuff, because I don't think we know what the hell is on the other side of it. I've tapped into that realm a little bit, just a little bit, enough. Like I've dipped my toe in the water. But in that realm is where people like Crowley, Grant Morrison, and others have met like alien beings. Aliens, man. Just, you know, you could say, well, you're just scared of the unknown. You're not facing your fear. That's a good point. It's a good point. But why do we have fear? I mean, if we didn't have fear, we'd just walk out into traffic. And, you know, we've talked about that quite a bit, talking about facing your fear. Fear is a fetter that binds. Yeah, when you become fearful of things that are kind of ridiculous or illogical. But, like, a fear of doing a ritual, to me, is illogical if it's something like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, where you're just talking to angels and calling upon God or something that's not that dangerous. However, that is when I started having those out-of-body experiences, especially that real one. And I thought that when you did these things, because I read the whole books, man. I read the books on this stuff from front to back. Countless books on all this stuff. I mean, I've read Abramelin and the Mage. I've read it once or twice. I don't remember all the details and all the names and the sets of rituals and all the symbols. No, but I've read that. I've read Eliphas Levi's books on magic. I've read Franz Barton's books, Arthur Edward Waite, Israel Regardie, Crowley. I've read them front to back. And I thought this is some of the coolest information I've ever read in my entire life. I mean, this is what they've been hiding from us all along. This is the real powerful stuff. This is it. This is the answer to all the conspiracies. And maybe it is. But when you practice it, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're not psychologically ready for certain things, things are going to happen to you. Weird things will start happening to you. Or they did to me. I can't speak for you and don't want to say that it'll happen to you. But what I'm trying to say is I don't want you to go out there and just jump into this stuff just because I said that some of it's okay. Not me. I mean, I hope you got more sense than that to follow somebody at their word. I hope you'll actually not just take my word for all this stuff and go look it up for yourself. Please, God. And the only reason why I keep bringing this up and saying that is because in the ufology community and the UFO community, that's what I've seen. I've seen a lot. I mean, just people that just don't research. You can tell by what they say. And they go, yeah, I research. And then they say something that just off the hat. You're like, there's no way you're researching if you said that, you know. And they're following these evangelists, right? And so I just don't want that to happen in this community. In the, I guess you could say, the magic and mysticism community. I've seen that too. But some of those people are a little bit more responsible about it. The magicians that have come on this show have flat out told you that magic is dangerous. 100% dangerous. And so I'm hoping, I don't want to say this anymore. I'm hoping this is the last time I'm going to say it because I'm getting tired of having to repeat myself. Do not jump into this head first and go full-fledged just because I tell you it's okay to look at. I'm just telling you there's more to it. There's something about this that's been hidden from us the whole time that taps into our own power. That's all I'm saying. With that said, though, the reason why I was attracted to the Golden Dawn system is because there's a book, I brought it up the other night, it's called Kabbalah, Magic, and the Great Work of Self-Transformation by Liam Thomas Christopher. There's a couple other books by Chick Cicero and that are about the Golden Dawn system of magic, and then there's David Griffin's Ritual Magic Manual. The way that system is set up, and a lot of chaos magicians and people like that, they get kind of upset when I say this. But the way that system is set up is it takes you through this process, but it opens you up energetically and opens you up psychically in a very gentle manner if you go through it properly. It's not about black belts or getting your black belts. It's about tapping into something that's dangerous, right? Tapping into something that's dangerous, but going through it in a way that that's a little bit safer. But that's just my understanding. And that's one of the reasons why I want to talk to more people like Ramsey Dukes and more chaos magicians. And I've even thought about this, but I'm wondering what you guys think about it. When we look into this stuff, how close-minded should we be? Where is the boundary? Where's the point that we say no? Where's the point that I say no on this show? Where I say, we're not going to do that. We're not going to have this kind of person on. We're not going to talk about that. I heard, and some of you heard this too, I heard E.A. Coetting, which is a very well-known black magician, like a dark magician. He doesn't shy about it. He tells her, I'm a black magician. I work with demons. But I heard him on an interview on Michael Deacon's End of Days show. And he made some interesting points. I still got some questions I'd like to ask him. So I'm wondering, maybe we should talk to these cats a little bit more. Maybe we should bring on, some of the scarier stuff, some of the scarier people that freak people out, and ask them what their mentality and reasons for are behind all of these things. Why would you just go straight into black magic? What has it done for your life? What happened when you invoked that demon? What did you go through? I would like to do that, and I said a long time ago that I would never do that. I think I said it on the air, actually. But I'm going to have to take that back. I think I might do it. I mean, this is a reality we're in. It doesn't mean I'm going to believe it. God, some of you guys, you really are like, oh, you had that guest on, he talks about this and that. It's almost like you guys think that every guest I have on, that I fall into everything they say all the time. And that would be crazy. I'd be a schizophrenic if I did that. But I'm just trying to understand certain people. But even like a Satanist, like, why do they do what they do? I mean, it's an official religion now, right? It is. So we have to face that fact that Satanism is like an official religion recognized by the government and the IRS. It's here. It's here to stay. So I don't think we're going to really start to understand the truth of all these things until we talk to everybody about this, everybody that's involved with it. Now, that might seem wrong or scary to some of you people, but Angel Joy is one of our listeners. She's in the, she's always in the Fringe FM chat, one of my favorite people in the world. And she really is digging in and knows a lot about this stuff and looks into this stuff. And so she was talking about the symbol 666, which is a symbol that we're all afraid of. And what, especially, man, when I was brought up, that symbol was something to be scared of. That was the mark of the beast. You know, that was the devil, the guy that was coming to bring the apocalypse and, you know, put chips inside everybody or whatever everybody comes up with that. But she wrote in there, which is pretty cool. And maybe if I can talk her into it, we can make an article out of it. But the 666 is actually a symbol for the light. It's a mystical association, is that it acts as a portal through the sun, meaning it's a solar energy. The ancients believed that the sun, like the earth, and like an apple, is a torus. It has a north, in, and south pole in it. And you can go through it to go to another world. You simply did the, I guess she said you simply did the Icarus myth ritual of trying to fly into the sun. But in fact, the Icarus story is a warning not to do this. But they don't want you to know this, that you can access other dimensions and other worlds. So they did bad press on the sun and associated fear to the value of 666. So you don't go there. So you dismiss it. Just like the 5-pointed star, which is tainted as evil, as the stuff of witches. Yet every protein in your body is a pentacle. And another associated symbol for the sun is the Hindu swastika, or spinning wheel of life. Again, another bastardized symbol, she says, to keep you ignorant. I mean, just recognize the sun, which is 666, and the swastika are life-giving energies, and learn to fear nothing except fear itself, right? So that's pretty cool. She wrote that in the chat room. And Crowley was known for that. People, that even when he was in court, they asked him, you know, don't you refer to yourself as the great beast 666? And he said, yes. And you can call me. He said, but you don't understand that number. You don't know what it means. And you can call me Little Sunshine. But you got to read Crowley to know about that stuff. Just because you read something doesn't mean you're going to become that person. I got people in the chat room doing like, yeah, do it. So I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to get a hold of EA Coeting. Not somebody that's just says magic is white or dark and, you know, it's both. I understand that. I get all that. But I want to talk to somebody who's focused on the dark side of it. I'm just curious. Why? And I know some of you from that have bias against Southerners, you think because I'm saying this that I'm naive or something, that I'm going to fall for whatever they say. I'm actually glad that some of you think that about me. It gives me power. But I learned a lot from, you know who I learned this from, actually? I learned this from some of the people that are on this network, like Dancing Dave at Surviving the System, right? Where he, this guy talks to people about the system and people that have been locked up, people that have been pointed at about, saying that's the bad guy there. Look what they did. And maybe they did some bad things. Maybe some bad stuff happened in their life. But like I brought up the other night, if you just pass the time with them, you'll see that they're human too. And they made a mistake maybe, or maybe they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe they got into something they didn't understand. It's real easy to judge when you're not doing anything, when you're not out in the world trying new things and trying to figure stuff out. It's real easy to judge people from your tower. So as I was listening to these, because I do production on the side and I'm listening to these interviews as I edit them and stuff, it made me realize that I need to talk to everybody, even about the subjects that I'm afraid of. Every subject I can think about that will help me come up with the answers to what we're trying to figure out here. No matter how afraid we are of it, no matter how evil we think it may be, and at the end of it all, it may be evil, but we still need to talk to them to try to figure it out. It's not time yet for me to get on here and start ranting and raving about politics and what I believe in and all that stuff. I'll do that when I'm in my late 40s or maybe early 50s. It's not time for me to do that yet. God, I mean, why are we so afraid of all this stuff? Why are we afraid to look at these books? I could draw a certain symbol on a book and put it up on eBay right now and sell it for $3,000. If you go on eBay, if some of you are on the internet or wherever you're at on your phone, you go to eBay, maybe, I don't know about Amazon or eBay, and just look up the books, any book with a demon name, a whole book about that demon, and they're selling for like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Why the hell are they so expensive? Why? Because these books are promising people powers that nothing else in the world will give them, that you can't get anywhere else, like shortcuts to really good things in life, real power, the dark side. And I got to think, if they're really selling for that much, maybe they do. And why do they? And maybe we'll talk about that with Ramsey here in a little bit. I mean, this guy's really smart. I've been watching his videos, listening to his videos about the psychology behind magic. And I understand that magic works, but we can't do a show about that. Yes, magic works, right? I want to figure out why it works so I can understand the fundamentals, so I can understand the science of it. Because to me, that's what it is. It's a science that we don't understand yet. That's why we call it magic. Because maybe that's what's keeping us all from seeing UFOs and talking to aliens, right? Maybe the only reason why I haven't been able to talk to an alien or have an encounter is because I don't know what I'm doing or I haven't tapped into a certain system yet. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not talking about just normal. I'm talking about freaky stuff, man. There's a order out there called, I think it's the Order of the Nine Angles or something like that. And they justify human sacrifice. So as a matter of fact, it's part of their, and I might get this wrong, I have to look at it, but it's part of their initiation process. They kill somebody, I think, and they justify it. And when you read the text, it's like, it's murder, right? Well, you and I know it's murder. It's bad. It's the worst thing on the planet, murder. It's one of the worst things. But the intellectualism of the dark side, in my opinion, is far superior than the light. Far superior. Because the way they talk about things, the way they dig into the psychology of things and reason and logic, and you start to question, morality. It makes you question morality. Like, And then you're like, wait, what am I talking about? I'm thinking about, this is human sacrifice, right? I wouldn't do this. You don't read stuff like that, I'm not naive. You'll have to go read it for yourself. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's pretty freaking wild how intelligent they get and how they describe it. Now, I'm not saying all this to prep you for the interview that's coming up with Ramsey, because I don't think Ramsey Dukes by no means is a evil, dark, black magician that's killing people. Hell no. But this is just some of the stuff that's on my mind. I want to talk to one of these cats, even if they don't want to give me their identity. If you're listening to me right now, I want to talk to you and try to get the reason out of why you're doing these things or why you believe it, and have you come on the show and talk to us. Just a conversation. Doesn't mean nothing, no judgments, just an understanding, just trying to see your side of things. If it's possible. So if somebody you out there knows one of these guys, tell them to come on. Now, I know there's a lot of people that listen to the show that are partial to Christianity and stuff, and they're thinking, oh, now you've done it, Joe. You're stepping in it. Well, I'm not. This isn't a conspiracy show. I don't want to sit and talk about all the bad stuff that's happening in the world without talking to the people that we're accusing of doing these things. I can't find somebody from the dark cabal. If you know somebody in the cabal, then I'll talk to them. Give them my number. We'll put them on the show, for God's sake. The only people that I know that are into anything close to that are black magicians, and I want to talk to them before I start pointing my finger. That's just the way I am. I've made too many mistakes making the judgment first without talking second. Yeah, you don't get away like Genevieve and the over on Spreaker's like, how do you get away with that? You don't get away with it. It's illegal to murder somebody. It's illegal. It's wrong, right? Morally wrong. But what'll happen is they'll get into questioning. They'll question morality, and then they'll have a discussion about morality, and they get into the philosophy of morality. And then once they got you convinced about that, then they take it even deeper about the discussion about humanity and survival. And, it just gets deeper and deeper. It's like a winding hole of logic, and it's all reason. They're not lying. It's crazy to see how they get there. How do we know they aren't just fantasizing? I hope they are just fantasizing. I hope they're really not killing people. But in that text, they don't talk about it. If you want to go see what I'm talking about, there's actually a YouTube video that a friend of mine, David Griffin from the Golden Dawn, had a discussion. So it was like a white magician talking to a black magician, where he invited E.A. Coetting to his house. And so it was the first video I ever saw where you had the head of an order of what's called, I guess you could call it white magic, versus like a dark or a black magician, and they're sitting in a house talking to each other. And they were talking about this, about the Order of the Nine Angles, some of the stuff that they did, human sacrifice. They were getting into that discussion. And you could tell that it was, certain things like David would just be like, no, that stuff is terrible, blah, blah, blah. But at least they had a discussion, which was like, they didn't do it. They just had a discussion. I know it sounds crazy, but if you go to the Golden Dawn's YouTube channel, I'll try to find it and put it in the show notes or the links or something. It's one of the first videos they ever made at an event called Magick out in the desert in Las Vegas, or in Pahrump, Nevada, which I went to the second or third Magick when I went to Nevada in Pahrump. I didn't even know Art Bell lived in Pahrump, but that's where I went to go see what that was about. So imagine my amazement when I saw a ritual for the first time. I got to see a group of witches do a ritual that I'd never seen before. And it wasn't anything like what the movies had told me about, anything like that. It was harmless. And there were a lot of good, cool people out there. We'll talk about that some other day. Maybe I can get David back on the show. But right now, we're going to bring on our guest. We got to take our break. We're at the top of the hour. So coming up, Ramsey Dukes is going to be with us, also known as Lionel Snell. We're going to talk about magic, the occult, the digital age, egregores, Crowley. We're going to do some cool stuff here. We'll be right back.
interested in getting information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com. We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves strip bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts. Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Duval, Lon Duquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts. We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm. Call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Occult Arcana is a balanced and objective guide to those subjects considered a part of the nature of light and darkness. Addressed in this text is a compilation of material that will provide new perspectives and awaken latent abilities that we all possess. The content herein shall provide magical sustenance for adept and novice alike, and will help strengthen the cornerstone of mystic understanding and alchemical transmutation. If you are interested in this modern grimoire, you can find detailed information and ways to order by visiting www.thesecretteachings.info. Although esoteric and occult studies remain vast, they are rooted within a universal philosophy that is difficult, if not impossible by finite terms, to explain in words. Language places restriction and erects barriers to understandings. By this it is to be understood that there are some things man should consider far too sacred to profane with definition. For these concepts and the manner by which we live our lives, we shall take a note from the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Quote, "Silence is better than unmeaning words." End quote. To get your autographed copy of Occult Arcana today, simply visit www.thesecretteachings.info or email The Secret Teachings at rdgable@yahoo.com.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, live on the Fringe FM. And right now we're going to bring on our guest, Ramsey Dukes. And Ramsey is the current and most well-known pen name of Lionel Snell, a contemporary English magician, publisher, and author on magic and philosophy. And Lionel Snell is among the founding names in chaos magic, though better known as Ramsey Dukes. In 1970, Gerald Yorke, keeper of the Crowley archive, introduced him to the writings of Austin Osman Spare, and he wrote Spare Parts, which is an introductory article about Spare's system of magic, which was also published in Agape 4 in 1973, together with a facsimile of Snell's copy of the Anathema of Zos. Now, for Ramsey, the word magic includes not just ceremonial magic, the occult, Thelema, chaos magic, witchcraft, etc., but also astrology, tarot, and all forms of divination. Most alternative healing systems and self-development processes such as individuation, NLP, Scientology, etc. He also thinks that marketing and advertising and most forms of psychological therapy are basically practical magic, which we've discussed that before on the show. That's pretty cool that he says that. And even when pretending to be scientific as well. Now, conjurors and mentalists call themselves magicians, and he thinks they are right, even when they merely claim to be exposing fake magic. And Ramsey, thank you for coming on. It's early in the morning where you're at, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, this is before breakfast for me, so it's quite an effort, but I'm very honored to be here with you.
Yeah, and I'm really honored to have you here, too, because you are the more, I guess, from listening to your videos and looking at your work, and I can't wait to dive into your books. You're pretty open to looking at all aspects of this thing called magic and the occult. Not just dive on one side or the other of morality, because a lot of people, when you talk about it, that's the first thing they want to do. Well, you mean black magic, or are you talking about the Golden Dawn or white magic? To you're looking at all of it. And do you think that we're defining magic wrong, or how do you define it different than most people do?
Well, one of the things is I tend not to use jargon because there are so many different types of magic, as you say, that as soon as you start talking in terms of, I know, thought forms, devas and that, people think, oh, that's theosophy. And if you talk about, your inner self and things like that, oh, that's New Age. And if you talk about, dark forces outside the circles of time, oh, that's Typhonian stuff. So I try not to use any of those terminology very much, but rather go back to basics and say, what do we want from magic? What is magic? And for a lot of people, magic is a sort of escape. You see, I was born very much in the 1950s into the world of scientific rationalism. Other people are born into religious ideas. That's what's all around them.
Right.
Now, the trouble is both science and religion tend to tell you what you can't do. This is not allowed. This is not right. And scientists will, if you had amazing sort of telepathic experience, you're thinking of a friend you haven't seen for years and suddenly they phone you up. That's magical. But science will say, no, that's just coincidence. There can't be any telepathy. So both religious and scientific backgrounds tend to sort of make your world smaller, a bit more cramped, whereas the human imagination can fly anywhere. So for some people, magic is a sort of escape to another world, like they might be Harry Potter fans. You read Harry Potter and you're in a world now where people can wave a wand and fly through the air and all sorts of things. Or else you go in for, the Lovecraftian stuff. Out there's this extraordinary world of great old ones that are dominating the universe. Or else even you just go to a New Age workshop. You're told about something like your shamanic power animal. And you have a great time for a weekend, discovering that. But when you come back to your ordinary life and you're with friends who say, oh, that's just a lot of New Age faff, isn't it? It always sort of tends to melt away very often and you're back in ordinary life. And so magic for many people is a sort of escape to somewhere else. But what I've always tried to say is that actually magic is here. Okay, it's weird, but it's here. Not out there, and you can begin to find it here if you start looking for it. So in that way, my approach to magic is rather basic, and I don't put such an emphasis on all the different schools of magic.
Fascinating. So what about the idea behind initiation and the process of the arcana, right? Do you subscribe to that?
Yes, because when people first approach magic, from outside, and they tend to think in terms of power. Crowley defined magic as the art and science of causing change in conformity with will. The idea you want something different, you want the girl next door to fall in love with you, or you want to be rich, or you want to be clever or something. And so people think, they look through old books of magic, I can do this spell and I can make it happen. Now, that's very attractive, but what tends to happen is actually you find out much more about yourself. I wrote a sort of satirical thing in one of my essays. I said, hey, I want to be rich, powerful, and famous. How do I become rich, powerful, and famous? 2, there's this thing called magic, which promises to make me rich, powerful, and famous. Wow, that's terrific. So I study magic, and how do I, first I have to make myself perfect. Well, how do I know when I'm perfect? It's when I no longer want to be rich, powerful, and famous. Right. Oh, shit.
Yeah, now you're in a paradigm, or you're in a debacle, so to speak, I guess, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so that aspect of it, rather than just giving you power, you have to prepare yourself for it. And, for instance, I did the Abramelin operation, which is a 6-month operation, where at the end of it, you're supposed to meet your guardian angel and the demons and that. Mm-hmm. Now, that 6 months is actually 6 months of sort of strengthening you. And it's really, in a way, it's very boring because you just set yourself a routine of praying at regular times and meditating at regular times through the day and doing a certain amount of fasting and things like that. And the real challenge there is to go from the everyday world where there's so much happening and there's so many choices to disciplining yourself to do that. And the idea really is that until you can manage that, until you can get that discipline and that strength, then you won't really be able to handle what happens after. Now, you might say, well, why do you need such strength? And the fact is that magic, although it sounds very attractive, I can take a bit of, people say, you can get a bit of lead and you can just turn it into gold, or I can get a bit of a steel and turn it into gold. That sounds brilliant. Wow, if you just concentrate hard, can you really make that happen? Now, in fact, it doesn't happen. And why is that? Well, actually, it would be a very dangerous world if that could just happen by concentrating on steel. You could turn it into gold, however attractive that sounds. Because if you think you're driving along a car at 70 miles an hour, and if you started thinking about the joints on the front wheels, which are made out of steel, and if you could just turn those into gold, you'd be dead, because gold is a soft metal. It couldn't possibly stand that speed and that pressure. Your wheels would fall off and you'd be killed. So if you're in an aeroplane and people say, well, just don't think about it. But if when you're told you mustn't think about it because it might happen, you start getting panicky and you concentrate on it. If the airplane turned into gold, it would fall out of the sky. So an idea which sounds a bit sort of attractive, you read Harry Potter and think, wow, wouldn't that be amazing? Actually, there are very good reasons why that doesn't happen easily. And so if one is going to be able to do really astonishing things, you have to be very, very strong and disciplined, stronger than me. Now,
why do you say that?
What
stronger than you?
Well, the thing is, the normal experience people have of magic, when they get into it, is much more what scientists say extraordinary coincidences. Sort of thing I had in mind is like, if you hear magicians talking, you might get someone saying, do you know what happened yesterday? I went into the market and there on a secondhand bookstore was the first edition Crowley Magick going for £19. Wow. I reached my wallet. I realized I didn't have it. Oh gosh, shit. I had nothing I could do. So I walked away from the market going out, and then I reached my back pocket and found a £20 note. Amazing. My jeans had only been washed yesterday, but somehow there's a £20 note there. So I went back and bought it. And everyone goes, wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Now, you see, from a scientific point of view, nothing's happened. Right. Okay, you put a £20 note in your back pocket and forgot about it, and there it was. That's a nice coincidence. But that's the sort of thing that tends to happen much more in magic, sort of coincidences, or you see something a bit weird, but no one else notices it, So that's the sort of thing that happens, rather than something absolutely astonishing like, a coin appearing in your hand out of nowhere. Because if a coin could appear in your hand out of nowhere, it's actually rather dangerous, because what it appeared, instead of in your hand, it appeared inside your brain. You'd go mad, It's the very good reasons why magic doesn't happen much in the everyday world, because it would make it a very dangerous world.
Right. I think what people are, well, at least like myself, is when I first started reading into this, is what is possible with it? And I guess you only know that based on your own personal experience, but what do you believe is possible? Are there things supernatural and supernormal that are possible? Let's say if you were good or strong enough, like you were mentioning earlier.
Well, I think that I'm open to the idea that actually everything would be possible, but I can see many good reasons why they are made very, very difficult, like what I've been saying. Now, if you take the example of healing, now, you might have a group of magicians, and one of them, say, gets cancer and is in hospital, and then they do a healing ritual. Now, of course, they sort of hope that the next day when they go to the hospital, they're told there's been a complete remission and the cancer's gone. But they sort of don't quite hope that that's going to happen. Very often what happens is something rather different. They go to the hospital and their friend that was in pain and agony and looking absolutely depressed and miserable is looking different. And they say, what's happened? And he says, all my life I've been frightened of things like cancer and frightened of what might happen to me. Now I've been told I've only got 6 months to live. I've decided for the first time in my life, I'm going to live. I'm going to write that book I always said I was going to write. I'm going to go and see things that I never got round to seeing. I'm going to live. Now, the people who did that healing ritual will tend to say the healing has worked because something important has shifted. Now, of course, a skeptic would say, well, that's a load of rubbish. He's still got cancer. Nothing's changed at all. But that sort of healing is actually very powerful because it doesn't just affect the person who receives it. It actually affects the whole group. They can look at their life differently now. And what then sometimes happens is because the guy's whole attitude is changed and he's more positive, then sometimes the cancer does begin to recede and the person does begin to overcome and lives much longer than that 6 months. Now, people on the outside say, that's the magic. That's the real healing. But actually, the magic was that first change, the change in that person's consciousness that made it possible for him to get better. Because actually, scientifically, if you're in that very positive state of mind, you've got more defenses and that can happen. So, but people tend to see the actual remission of the cancer as the real magic, whereas very often it's a shift that takes place in the way you see the world. And that is actually the real magic.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on that because there's some, you brought up a few times in your YouTube channel about how once you realize how this stuff really works, it's not as a super fanatical or fascinating as people make it. Some of it's quite boring, actually, if you look into it. But
the discipline of it,
right, the discipline of it for sure. But the Abramelin and the Mage ritual, ritual, I wouldn't call it a ritual. What would you call something like that? It takes 6 months. That's an operation, right?
An operation, definitely. Yes.
That was just jargon again, but it describes it better, I think. But do you feel like you successfully accomplished what you were trying to accomplish with that operation?
I went into it fairly open-minded because when you start doing something like that, 6 months of really focusing on an intention and putting things of the world aside as best you can, you start looking at yourself. And, when I looked into myself, there was a part of me that just wanted miracles. My life was rather boring. I was in an office job. I wanted an angel to appear, and sort of, I had this great dream. I wanted a Van Veen motorcycle, which was the ultimate motorbike of the day. And I thought, oh shit, is that all I'm doing this for? And I realized, no, actually, I'm not satisfied with myself. I want to be a greater person. And as you focus on it, you realize actually that's the more important thing. If I just go back to that example of, the healing and the person, if it had happened just like snap your fingers magic, they'd gone in the next day and there was no cancer, the person would have probably gone back to his old life and he would have gone on being just as before, not doing anything. But so the actual change in yourself, and this is like that in the thing I said about becoming perfect, you realize that a more fundamental purpose of magic is to make yourself more fulfilled, a better person. And that is the initiatory aspect of it. There you are, just in the world, a sort of a victim of the world, doing what limited by what people say is possible and all that. If you really look into yourself and become like a higher person, contact your higher parts, you're moving up, and that it changes the world in the sense that you're seeing much more. You're seeing patterns and things. You're seeing things in people which you never saw before because you were told they weren't there. And so that's the initiation part of magic, moving up to higher levels. And it's the same in all different systems. In yoga, if you study the yogic texts, it says that you do find weird things happening. You do have weird experiences, but they could be a bit of a distraction, because what really matters is what's changing in you and how that changes your whole perception of life and the world. And that is very enriching.
Is that why, because I asked you about if you felt like the operation was successful, do you feel like that's what it was? That's what it was. You pretty much invoked a higher aspect of yourself that shifted your reality. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, what happened at the end is after those 6 months, there's a period which is meant to be 7 days where you meet your angel, and then he introduces you to the various spirits. And that should all happen in 7 days. Now, when it ended, that 6 months, I had a very strong feeling I wasn't ready, that I needed more time. And I consulted the I Ching, which I was using as a sort of a guide, from making decisions. Mm-hmm. And it said, get back to ordinary life as soon as possible. So I was very torn with that. But so when it came to the ritual, when the guardian angel should appear, I had a very strong sense of sort of a presence. That something was happening, but it wasn't like seeing an angel out there that spoke to me. I was feeling I was in a presence. And then I didn't get what should have happened over the 7 days, didn't happen. I went through the motions, but there was a sense of it. So part of me was very disappointed by that and a bit fed up. But what happened actually was that my life, which had been this very boring sort of office job, was really turned upside down. And over 7 years, I had all sorts of experiences and changes which had nothing literally to do with what should have happened, but it was like sort of acting them out. One very simple example which woke me up to this was the book Abramelin describes how when it comes to dealing with the evil spirits, you have to sort of discipline them. And it describes you get your wand and you thump it on the altar to quieten them and things like that. Now, about a year later, I was teaching in a Waldorf school, a Rudolf Steiner school, and I had very rowdy pupils because it's one of those schools that doesn't turn anyone away and tries to help difficult pupils that are refused by other schools. So I had this very rowdy class, and I found myself thumping with a ruler on the desk to quieten them. And I suddenly thought, heck, I'm learning the lesson that I should have learnt on that day with the demons. I'm learning how to bring out that part of me that can sort of express anger forcefully and have that effect. Now, of course, that sounds like a funny example, but it really hit me at the time. I went back and read it and thought, that's the lesson I'm learning now. And so in that sort of way, a lot of the things that should have happened just, in one day under the instruction of my angel were sort of happening in my life over a longer period. And so at the end of those 7 years, I realized that something really had changed. And I found myself thinking, I'm a magician now. It was like that.
Gotcha.
So once again, you could look at it from the outside and say, well, really, it failed, didn't it? Nothing happened. But from my subjective experience, something pretty amazing had happened in its own way. Mm.
Yeah, that is fascinating, because someone in the chat room brought up that movie, which is called A Dark Song, and it's on Netflix, and the whole movie is about the Abramelin ritual, where a woman goes through it for revenge purposes or whatever, but she ends up seeing the angel in the end, and it shows this big, massive, powerful angel, right? And she's just full of tears and stuff. And, watching that movie kind of made me teary-eyed, because I've always imagined that that's what it would be, kind of like something like that, where you really just come into divine contact. But maybe we don't really understand what the divine is. We just think we do, sometimes. I often wonder.
Well, I enjoyed that movie. One thing is he talked about Abramelin, but actually the movie had a much more exciting ritual, all those wonderful circles and things like that. Yeah, that was great stuff. And yet it wasn't stupid. It was based on sort of magical ideas and things like that. So they made a good bit of cinema out of it. Now, the thing that really was realistic for me was the girl kept saying, why is nothing happening? Why is nothing happening? And that actually was very realistic, because like me, part of me was wanting something dramatic, to tell me I was doing it right. And she was wanting that. Why is nothing happening? She kept saying. And then she had this amazing experience at the end. So you might say, well, what was different from what she experienced, what I experienced? I had that strong feeling, and I cried, I wept.
Right.
But she actually saw something. Now, it's interesting to me, because back then I wanted to see an angel in front of me. Now, that was, we had television in those days. We didn't have smartphones where I could just see you. We haven't got it switched on now, but if I switched on the camera and you did, I could see you all across that distance. So we really valued the idea of seeing someone, seeing an angel, seeing your power animal or whatever. We put a lot of emphasis on that. But nowadays, it's been debased, that seeing. As I say, I could switch on my phone and go to FaceTime, something like that, and see someone right across the world. But what people are beginning to missing is that sense of presence. It's all very well having chat groups and things like that, but you realize what you miss is just sitting down in the same room as someone, being in that presence. And so there's something else there. And that was what I was getting then. I had a sense of presence. I was in the presence of something, but I wasn't seeing it.
Is it undeniable, the presence?
No, you can always deny anything.
Yeah.
You can always say, oh, I'm imagining it, but it's something very valuable. You think of the difference between talking to someone on FaceTime and sitting across a table from them, sharing a meal. There's a richness of that actual presence, which not even seeing them. I mean, you can close your eyes and being in the presence of someone. And that's a very powerful thing. So in a sense, I was having that rather than seeing the angel. But at the time, that was disappointing to me. Now, if I think about it, I'd really rather have that sense of presence than simply to see something in front of my eyes, which might be an illusion.
So when I read the book, I think I read Mather's version of it, I believe. Abramelin, and all the name. When I first read it, I felt like just reading it was an evil thing, right? Because when you brought up earlier, certain people are brought up in certain situations. Well, I was brought up as a Protestant, a Baptist religion, so I was brought up my entire childhood to believe all of these things were very evil, not to be touched, messed with, tampered with, looked at, picked up. Pretty much, if my father would have found it, he would have burned it and threw it out in the yard. But when I got into reading Crowley and stuff from the Golden Dawn, I started thinking, well, this makes sense, right? And so does magic to you tap into a power that's understood that we've always had? We've just, we've not been taught to tap into it, if that makes any sense.
I think so, yeah. I think that I said earlier on that both most people, their background is either religious culture or scientific culture or a mix of both, and I could say me, where I was brought up, we weren't a very religious family. We were more rational. And I trained as a mathematician and, I was trained in science and that. So I had that strong scientific background, but also religion was in the culture. We had morning prayers and that sort of thing. And both of those things tend to put quite an emphasis what you can't do. Religion does it because it says this is evil. There are things you mustn't do because they're evil. Science says it because you mustn't do these things because they're mad, they're crazy, they don't exist. But really it's the same message. Don't dabble with this stuff, either because you're mad if you are, or you're evil if you are. But particularly, as you say, Crowley's writings, what he did was more look at the world around you, look at subjective experience. Now, if you have something a bit miraculous happens, and there's an example I had when I was at Cambridge, in my first year at Cambridge, I saw a ghost, a very vivid spectre of a man over my bed holding a dagger. Very alarming.
Wow.
But instead of sort of turning on the light or shrieking or anything like that or hiding under the covers, I simply stared at it. And it was very real, very three-dimensional. But as I kept on staring it sort of melted away into the background, which was a swirly curtain at the end of my bed.
Oh.
Now, what the scientists would say, well, that was it, wasn't it? The swirly patterns on the curtain, your mind mistook it for this figure, and that's what you saw. But I went on staring at that swirly pattern. Now, with these sort of psychological tests where you look at ink blots and you think you can see a girl reading a book there, because it looks like that, but you can also see it's an ink blot. You can go between the two. Now, if my mind had made that swirly pattern look like this ghost, then why couldn't it do it again? In other words, if I was still looking at, with eyes still looking at that same pattern, I should be able to see where the ghost was, but it had gone. Now, what that told me was that my mind was sort of normalizing the world. What my mind had been trained to do was to get rid of magic. And in a way, that's the role of consciousness. When are you most conscious? And you think of perhaps when you're meditating and you're very open to everything, but really you're most conscious when something extraordinary happens. I used to give this example. Say you're reading one of my books. Just imagine if it suddenly turned into a tablet of stone in your hands. You wouldn't just say, oh, wow, it's a tablet of stone. You would go, what? And you would stare at it and you would reach out and touch it. All your senses will be alive to what had just happened. And so I think one of the roles of consciousness, it's a sort of normalizing mechanism to stop magic from happening.
Wow, see.
And so
we were talking about that last night. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I saw these when I was a kid. I saw these things that you're talking about, and my father would tell me, that this is in your mind, and I said, no, something was flying over me. I felt it touch me. I saw it, when I ran through it, I ran into your bedroom. It did disappear, and he said, it's in your mind. But I'm starting to think that we trained ourselves not to see it or not to be able to do that.
Yes, and for the sort of reason I gave earlier, there's actually very good reasons for that training. life would become very difficult if all these sort of weird things could just happen. So consciousness is doing something quite positive in a way, but the overall effect is to make our world much more limited. So for me, if you want to experience magic, it begins by allowing things to happen which consciously you're not supposed to happen. Now, I one time I went up to a sacred place, and I spent a whole day there in meditation, and I saw a fairy. Now, it was against the background of leaves and foliage and all that sort of thing. And so I had a strong impulse. I want to stare hard at it and reach out to it. But I knew by then not to do that. Instead, I kept my senses open. I didn't say, oh, there's a fairy. I just observed that I was seeing something. I kept my mind completely open, and it stayed.
Wow.
And by thinking inside myself, I started a conversation with it. And answers popped up into my head. And they weren't just the obvious answers. There was quite an interesting conversation takes place. Now, you see, there's this strong training we had that if you see something weird like that, you should immediately test it to see if it's real. Stare hard, reach out, try to touch it, and you find, oh, no, it's just the leaves in the background, that sort of thing. But if you allow it and you stay open to it, very often interesting things happen, and you begin to experience a richer, more magical world. And one of the books I wrote was called How to See Fairies, and it takes you through that process of opening yourself up. And the way I did it is I began with things which, I should just say this book was based on a course I did, an online course, which was, I called it Experimental Clairvoyance for the Non-Psychic, because I realized a lot of people love the idea of being clairvoyant and seeing things and having psychic experiences, but they're pretty sure they're not psychic. You know, they sort of, I wish I could see angels and fairies, but trouble is I haven't got that ability. And so I began by saying, how do you know you haven't got that ability? And I began by training people to open themselves up more. And I began by a very simple exercise, which I said, put on a piece of good music in a room, listen to it, and then answer this question, does it sound better if you're lying down or standing up? Now, you see, the rational mind immediately says, well, that's a load of rubbish. It's the same piece of music. But you can argue with the rational mind in this case. You can say, but the acoustics in the room are slightly different. Your physiological state is slightly different. So there ought really to be a difference between listening to it lying down and standing up. But can you detect it? So you're beginning to tell people to look for tiny things which normally you don't admit are different. And there are other things like that. There's things like wine tasting. You know, you read these extraordinary descriptions. It's got a touch of acidity and flintiness and aftertaste of rose or this, that, and the other. And you taste the wine, you think, well, that's a load of rubbish. It's just good wine. But if you train yourself, you begin to notice all these very, very subtle things. So that's how I began the training. And then I moved on to things like, finding your place in the garden, your sacred place, just by being open to finding a place that felt better. And gradually I led up to how to see the fairies, flower fairies, tree fairies, the devas of these things. And, someone said to me, but this is just imagination. Now, the thing is that the one word I disagree with in that sentence is the word just. Because actually imagination is huge. Imagination is much bigger. The imagined world is far bigger than anything that science can describe.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists say we start with a Big Bang and there's no time before the Big Bang. But I can imagine 10 minutes before the Big Bang. My world is twice as big as the scientists' world because, and they'll say, but it's not meaningful. It is meaningful. You go 10 minutes after the Big Bang, you go 10 minutes before the Big Bang. The imagination already has got a world which is twice as big. The imagination is huge. I mean, the moon used to be the eye of Horus. It was the goddess of the night. There was a man on the moon. All these things that was made of blue-green cheese. So many possibilities. And what science actually did by landing on the moon was got rid of all those other possibilities and said, no, it's a big piece of rock out there. So the imagination is enormous. So anyone who said that's just imagination is really missing the point. The thing is that what they call the real world is just a subset of that imagined world. It's one which happens to have a bit of inertia. It's a bit more solid.
But
it's like the sediment at the bottom of a glass.
But you can use the imagination to affect the real world, to me, which is magic, right? You can use it to affect the real world.
Yeah.
Like something I've always been fascinated with, and maybe you can help me kind of understand this. And I'm really I've skipped a break actually because I'm enjoying this so much, but we'll make up for it in a minute. But like Crowley's Rose Cross ritual or the invisibility ritual, you know what I'm talking about? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yes. The ritual where, magicians and invisibility kind of go together. That's always been like a cliche. But the idea, from my understanding, was two different things that could happen is you become invisible to entities that are in the astral realm or in the dream world. But also, it could be possible, and I don't really understand this, but you become invisible to the real world, but not like you're cloaked, not like you have an invisibility cloak on scientifically, but more like people just don't become aware of you, or you're no longer in their awareness, so to speak. And Crowley said that works, that's successful, I think. He wrote about that.
Yeah, it's actually a sort of skill which some people who wouldn't consider themselves magicians can acquire. Confidence tricksters or spies, they know they get the skill of sort of not being noticed. Now, which really is the same thing, but just less extreme. And that is a question of affecting the minds of people. They look away. Mm-hmm. Now, for some people, they would then immediately ask, but if there was a surveillance camera in the room, would it pick you up? And that is a whole different level of stuff. And that is a type of magic that I wouldn't aspire to. But really, the most useful thing very often is not to be noticed. And so a magic which, as you described, sort of makes it that you're not perceived by people, right. And therefore you could go through them without being noticed, is really the more useful thing in most cases. But it's an interesting question of whether one could take it further, that you weren't actually picked up on the cameras. And of course, there's an in-between thing like that, which is the camera might have picked you up, but someone looking at the camera image doesn't notice you're there. So there's still an in-between thing that could happen. Just on that example, I'd like to give another example of how the mind tries to stop us seeing magic. When I was at university and before, I realized there's one way you could actually force someone to witness magic, and that is the hypnotist, who puts a post-hypnotic suggestion that when he snaps his fingers, Joe is going to be invisible. He'll vanish. Now, a hypnotist described this to me. He was giving a demonstration after the war for a lot of soldiers who are, been wounded, and they're in their hospital beds. And he came in as an entertainer to tell them about hypnotism. And he demonstrated, he found one good subject who was very skeptical. I don't believe this nonsense. You couldn't do that to me. And he hypnotized him so that when he snapped his fingers, everyone in the ward would become invisible. And so he woke the guy up and was talking away, and he snapped his fingers, and the guy didn't show any change. His face he didn't say, "My God, they vanished." And so he said to the person, where was the person in the next bed? And he looked over and he said, "Oh, I think he went out." And so he sort of snapped his fingers again, and they all came back. You say he went out. Oh, he's back now. The guy wasn't seeing anything miraculous. His mind was filling in that the people had gone out and come back in. And he did it several times, and he wasn't able to shake this guy. He would say, "What happened to the guy you were talking to just then?" "Oh, I think he's gone out now." So he struggled. What can I do to convince this guy? And so he gave him a new post-hypnotic suggestion that when he snapped his fingers, half of the person in the next bed would vanish, leaving only half of him there. And so when he did that and snapped his fingers, the guy had a sort of breakdown. He was absolutely shattered.
Wow.
Because he had been forced to see something impossible, whereas before his mind had sort of, wiped it out. And he actually had to sort of bring the guy down, deprogram him from this thing because it was caused such a shock. Now, that to me shows that this consciousness, which stops us seeing magic, is actually very protective, and it's something we need to respect. We shouldn't hate it and say, "How dare you stop me living magic and seeing magic?" It's something that's trying to protect us, and you need to respect it. And you have to say, if I really want to experience magic, I have to be very careful to allow a little more magic into my life.
Right.
I believe it's there. It's all around us. But we keep it out for some good reasons, some bad reasons. Some of the bad reasons are simply because we're told we mustn't see it. It's not allowed, which is not a very good reason. But it's quite a protective thing, saving us from a world where extraordinary things could happen.
What about people that are, and I've talked to quite a few of them, like Graham Hancock, who talks about ayahuasca and DMT, the pineal gland, these types of things. Yeah. When they have this experience, they all come back and say, whatever the veil was, it was broken, it was torn down. The breakthrough experience, yes. Some of them don't get that far, but some of them do, and they say, I pierced through the veil and I saw the construct, and some of them even believe in God that didn't believe in God before. Do you think that's dangerous? I think it's dangerous, but I am awful, to be honest with you. I'm very tempted to try it.
Yes. Well, it is like a sort of shortcut to taking down that defense, that layer of defense, that protective layer. And so the question then is, it gets back to this thing, have you got the strength for it? Because if you were a totally irrational person who didn't believe any of us or thought it was all terribly wicked, that could destroy you, that experience.
Yeah. Right.
Suddenly your whole foundation of your world is knocked out from underneath you. When I took psilocybin mushrooms, and it was a wonderful experience. It was an enriching, it opened me up. But by then I was quite an experienced in magic. And, the person who gave it to me said, "What would you like to do? Would you like to go out for a ride or go to a party or something?" And I said, "No, I want to be in my own house, and I want to be just with you, and I'm going to be meditating." Because what I wanted was to sort of try to form a bridge between my ordinary life and the extraordinary world I was going to experience. It's like what I didn't want to do was the equivalent of getting in an airplane, you fly to another country and you get out, and the different climate, everything's totally different. I wanted to sort of walk my way into this experience so that it was connected to my ordinary life. And so that's what I did. I sat in meditation and nothing happened and nothing happened. And then I began to feel indigestion. That was interesting because as a child, indigestion quite often brought on visionary dreams. And I thought, this is interesting. And I had read about psilocybin's network of roots under the earth, which said it's like the network in the brain. It's almost as though the mushroom has got a great big brain under the ground and is trying to communicate with me. And as I had this indigestion, I began to feel like it was growing into my brain, almost like a network of fibers.
Oh, no.
And that was frightening, but I said, no, I trust it. I'm going to allow this. And then the beautiful experiences began to happen.
Wow.
And you see, that was me sort of like saying, I'm not going to be thrown into this experience and I'm going to come out of it and think, wow, what's real? I want to try to walk into that experience, to feel the way along. It's almost like, in the myth of the people who go down into the underworld and they decide that they're going to unravel a ball of wool and unravel it as they go down so that they've got this ball of wool, they can find their way back by following the wool backwards. That was what I was trying to do in a way. And so I was getting that experience, but connecting it to my real world. And so I was left with a richer world because I'd seen what was like behind the veil. Now, that was very powerful. And it was possible partly because of the magical training I'd already done. I'd sort of strengthened myself that I could take this. And for some people, I think that's very necessary. And it's a thing I would recommend, really. The danger for many people is if they have a trip and they go to a party or they go out for a wild ride. And so there they are in this quite extraordinary state. And if it's a bad trip, it's totally overwhelming. Whereas you want to try to make it real and vivid in a different sort of way to give it value. And that's what I was trying to do.
That's fantastic. And I just want to say too, that you have I have listeners texting me about this. You have a very eloquent way of explaining these things that I haven't been able to explain at all. So I can only imagine what some of your writing is like. We've got to take a break here. But I wanted to, when we come back, because we're moving to the last part of the program, I wanted to get into some of the deeper questions and aspects, things like Crowley when he had met the being or channeled the being I was, things like that, because it's something that a lot of people are talking about now from a very conspiratorial angle, as if there's something coming to take over the world from an interplanetary or interdimensional thing. And I just wanted to see what maybe some of your opinions on this stuff was, and also talk a little bit more about the digital age and artificial intelligence. And if you guys really need to go check out his YouTube channels, Ramsey Dukes. We'll put the links to in the show notes, and just see what he's talking about. But we'll be right back. More from Ramsey. Don't go anywhere.
Okay. All right.
new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. An unidentified flying object has been filmed from a mountain overlooking the top of the secret U.S. Air Base Area 51 in Groom Lake, Nevada. Hikers scale Tikaboo Peak in Nevada to overlook the secretive base, which is thought to be where the latest aircraft technology is tested. Speculators claim the mysterious U.S. airbase has been closed down, but YouTuber Adventures with Christian captured helicopters, trucks, and planes there. And 11 minutes into the 22-minute video, a strange floating white UFO can be seen close to a plane that is entering a hangar, though it is unlikely to be alien activity. A huge new hangar can also be seen, the latest change to the base in almost 10 years. The hangar is approximately 210 feet wide by 250 feet long and is very high. You can see the video and read more of this story at Daily Mail Online. And exorcist bishop pours holy water on an evil city from a helicopter. Ruben Montoya wants to use his position as Bishop of Buenaventura in Colombia to purge the streets of evil. Montoya told local radio station Blue Radio, "We want to go around the whole of Buenaventura from the air and pour holy water onto it to see if we exorcise and get out all those demons that are destroying our port so that God's blessing can come and gets rid of all the wickedness in our streets." Local media reports the National Army supports the bishop's plan and have offered him the use of a helicopter to carry it out. Source, the Daily Star. And our sun can spawn dangerous superflares, according to a new research. High-energy superflares are typically associated with young, quickly rotating stars, but new evidence suggests mature floating stars, like our own, can still churn out the odd superflare. Stars located hundreds of light years away sometimes belch out powerful energy enough to be detected by astronomers here on Earth, known as superflares. They're like normal strength solar flares, but on a much grander scale. Conventional thinking suggests superflares are produced by young stars that our middle-aged sun, which is 4.6 billion years old, is largely immune to such spasmodic bursts of energy. New research published in Astrophysical Journal suggests superflares can indeed be generated by mature, slowly rotating star like our sun. Source, Gizmodo.com. And here's another fun fact to make the Fringe listeners the smartest in the world. The word go is the shortest complete sentence in the English language. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say due to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma's all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. AncientLifeOil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person, you. ancientlifeoil.com. And one more thing, we have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. ancientlifeoil.com.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Tonight we're here with Ramsey Dukes, also goes under the pen name Lionel Snell, and I want to thank my co-producer Patrick Pacho for helping book this show. So I totally understand what you mean by when you say you don't get into the jargon of things, because I've done so many shows on this topic, Ramsey, about magic and the occult, things like that, and trying to explain them, you do find yourself speaking a lot of jargon that doesn't come across the way that you want it to, and the way you discuss it, it's totally different. It makes a lot of sense. It makes logical sense, actually. Magic is a topic that's illogical to most people. So, yeah, it's been fascinating. But like I was mentioning before the break. No, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that I actually earn my living writing for the IT industry, writing business to business stuff, where I have to explain things like software defined networking in terms that business people understand, and so it's part of my training in a way, putting across weird stuff in simple terms.
Yeah.
So I think that probably contributes to it.
Yeah, Laird Scranton does kind of the same thing, where he has to look at code that way and explain the parallels between different systems and things like that, and explain it in a logical way.
Yeah.
What is a big topic now when people talk about Crowley? One of the biggest things that comes up, is the whole, especially with that new show out now, Strange Angel, with Jack Parsons, and they're showing Thelema, and you're a member of the OTO, right? Or you still belong to that group?
Yeah, yes,
and
yes.
They're portraying mainly the sex magic part of it. Of course, it's TV. They're going to focus on those things like that. But
all right,
so people are getting this huge conspiratorial feeling, and I don't blame them really, because when you read the Book of the Law, I mean, he's talking about pecking out the eyes of Jesus and all this other stuff. So on the surface, it looks pretty scary that there's this being that he invoked that's all about do what thou will, and that everything's going to change. But are we just not seeing the bigger picture here? Like, help me understand this to where it doesn't seem so scary.
Well, one of the things that's sort of very fundamental about the Book of the Law is that Crowley had this idea we're entering a new aeon, the aeon of Horus. Now, people have funny ideas about a thing like that. They sort of think, wow, everything changed in 1904. It's now the aeon of Horus. And the way I see it, it isn't quite like that. Crowley describes three aeons: the aeon of Isis, the mother, aeon of Osiris, the father, and the aeon of Horus, the child. Now, it's the way I see it is it's like growing up. What is the end of Isis? Well, he says that's like the Old Testament. The Old Testament says, "Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt do that." There are all these instructions, very detailed instructions. If you read the Old Testament, even things like I think it says, you shouldn't take dairy products and meat at the same time. It's all do this, don't do that. Now, when you go to the New Testament, it's a different sort of morality. I was struck by there's this thing when Jesus was faced with a sinner, and people were going to throw stones at the sinner. According to the sort of the old law, you stone this person, and Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Now, that's not giving an order. What it's saying is, okay, if you've never sinned in your life, go ahead and throw the stone. What it does is it makes people think, oh, what should I really be doing? Now, I said that's a bit like growing up. When you're a toddler, and you see the toddler reaching for the hot frying pan, you don't give them a lecture on heat or anything like that, or say, no, I wouldn't do that. You say, don't touch that pan. You have to be very clear and very precise. And it was like mankind way back needed that sort of direct commands of what they should and shouldn't do. But as you grow up, when you're more like an 11-year-old or a 9-year-old, it's no longer appropriate to do that. Instead, what parents tend to say is things like, eat up your food because other people in the world are starving, and it's wrong to waste it. Or else your mother really loves you and she put a lot of work into making this meal, so you must eat it up. Now, what that's doing is not saying a command. What it's saying really is try to be like a perfect person. Because at that stage, the parents are trying to present themselves as a perfect role model. And there's this famous saying, the imitation of Christ, which doesn't mean a fake Christ. What it means is you should, in your life, try to live your life as close as possible to Christ. So that's the sort of morality which says we should aim to be perfect. We should try to find things that are perfect. Now, what happens when you get a bit older? You become a teenager. And the answer is you rebel. And the end of Horus is rather like coming into that rebellious phase. Nietzsche said, God is dead. About the most rebellious thing you could say. It's like saying my dad's a shit. So this guy I thought was perfect.
You mean as a society, we're coming into a rebellious age? Okay.
Yes, a rebellious stage. And it's like rebellion. Now, what does the father do? What does God do when you behave like that? What does the father do when his teenage son, against his command, goes out and gets a motorbike?
Disciplines.
The father gets angry. He gets angry and he gets unreasonable. He says, no, I'm never going to let you have a motorbike, rather than just, I'm going to make sure you learn to drive it properly. The god Horus is a war god. He's like that. And so if you read the third book of the law, the third volume of the book of the law, it's got all this peck out the eyes of Jesus stuff. That's an angry, cursing god. The mistake is to, in your mind, go back to that Old Testament way. Oh, Horus is ordering me to stamp on the weak and do this, that, and the other. Actually, Horus isn't like that. He's a war god. He shouts at you, but really he only respects you if you shout back. So people who say, oh, I'm going to be like the book of the law, I'm going to be in the age of Horus, I'm going to start despising the weak, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. They are actually behaving more like Isis. They're doing what God tells them to do. Whereas Horus would rather you said, fuck you, Horus. I myself am a pacifist. I don't believe in that shit. Horus would respect you because you're standing up to him. Because what Horus really wants, and what you want from a teenager, is to stop being stupidly rebellious, to stop just obeying your parents, but actually find your own integrity. And that's a lot of what the Crowleyan morality is about. When he says, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, that sounds as though he's saying just do what the hell you like is all that matters. But actually he has this idea of your true will. You try to find out what you're really in this world to do. And he gives the example of the true will of an acorn is to grow into an oak tree. Now, it doesn't mean that every single acorn will grow to an oak tree. Some get eaten by pigs, some just gets crushed. But that is what it is on this planet and has the ability to do. And he says that every one of us, every man and every woman is a star. Every one of us as an individual has got potential to achieve something, to become fulfilled. And that we won't do that if we simply obey what orders from parents or from important people, like the Aeon of Isis, or if we go always in search of perfection. Now, that sounds a great thing to go in search of perfection, but think of this. How many people have you known who are on the spiritual path and they find a guru and they say, this guy is amazing. He's the greatest person I've ever met, and he's amazing, and I'm following his way. Then a year later you say, how are you getting on with your guru? They say, oh, that guy, oh, you know, he was sleeping with his acolytes. He's an absolute fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So are you still doing his stuff? Absolutely not. Now, what's happening there, you see, is they were looking for perfection, and when it wasn't perfect, they then throw it all away, rather than saying, well, what did I learn from this person? You know, he's not someone I want to associate with, but what good did he give me? And see, Crowley is a fine example, and so are people like Gurdjieff, Madame Blavatsky. There's a lot of gurus and things since 1904 who have marvelous ideas and are very inspiring, but then you learn that they're frauds, they're charlatans. You know, Madame Blavatsky faked spiritualist phenomenon. Gurdjieff walked out on his pupils. And so it's easy to say, oh, well, that guy's no good, you know. But actually, what you should be doing is saying, well, what can we learn from them? In the age of Horus, you're no longer looking for perfection. You realize perfection is not the aim. It's to get better. It is to improve. Perfection is an inspiring thing, but it's an illusion. And just because something isn't perfect doesn't mean you can't learn from it. And so the whole feeling of rebellion and darkness and, you know, Crowley taking drugs, that sort of thing, casts this pall over the whole business. Whereas actually, this is what the Aeon of Horus is like. We're having to use our own judgment, not just be told by other people. And it's much more about individual choice.
I get what you're saying. It's kind of like whatever the divine spirit is using that aspect kind of to say, you know, look, it's time to get past this nonsense of dogma and you know, shame, things like that are keeping you from evolving, and start, you know, like put your foot down, do what you're here to do, you know.
Yeah.
It's time to do what you're here to do.
Yeah. And it's good also, you see, to see it from the parents' point of view. It is pretty unpleasant when you know, your fine son who is doing so well in school, he goes all spotty and starts rebelling and, you know, and cuts his punk hair and all that sort of thing. Yeah. It's quite upsetting. And it's actually a growing up experience for the parent to realize, no, he's just going through a phase. And if he can get through this, he's going to be a more complete human being. And, that's what tends to happen. You get this huge thing of rebellion. And then the guy, now you talked earlier on about initiation.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the things that happened after Abraham Lynn. One of them was my girlfriend got pregnant and I became a father. And if you're talking about life's initiations, that is the biggest initiation.
That's a big one, yeah.
That could happen for a bachelor to find he's now a father. Being a parent is a huge initiatory experience. And for some people, it breaks them. But for most people, they grow up like anything. You can be an adult child, but it's not easy to be an adult child after you've had your own children. You really do grow up. So it's good to see this sort of evolving, not just from the point of view of we are now no longer expecting God to be perfect. We are growing up and we're rebellious people, but also to see it that God, in a sense, is growing up with us. Now, if you think of some of the things that have happened in recent years, if you think of one Christian, very, very powerful Christian sect, which was Jones, the Reverend Jones, and the Jonestown Massacre.
Right, yeah.
The Reverend Jones was an inspiration to many people, a Christian who did real charitable work and helped many people. It was a very good Christian sect. And yet, when he went off, the equivalent of going off into the desert, he went off to a lonely place with his people. The message he got from God is make them all commit suicide. He got paranoid. And you see, he was experiencing, as it were, the rage and the paranoia of God. And it came out in this very negative form. So you can actually, and if you think of the Muslims, the terrorists, they are still Muslims, but they are contacting an angry God. They're no longer seeing the good there. And this is, so, there really is a different relationship to God. We really need to understand that in our rebellion, God too becomes angry and God too can be growing up. And it's almost as though we have to sort of work together in a different way. And I don't quite know what that way is because we're at the very beginning of the Aeon of Horus. This is perhaps the great change that people are talking about. Mm-hmm. How is it we're going to, as human beings, grow up and yet get back to a good relationship with the powers of the universe, the gods, things like that? It's a huge challenge. And I think Crowley presented this challenge in a very real way.
But Thelema's when I looked into it, when I started looking into things like the Golden Dawn, I stumbled upon Crowley and George Cecil Jones's system of, the AA. And I thought, well, this is a system that he built based on, his experience with the Golden Dawn. He just added a lot of Eastern things to it and really sped up the process as far as, going through things. But when I looked at that, I really thought about it. But then they talked about Thelema, and I had such a bad experience with religion that I was thinking, well, Thelema's just this is great, but it's another religion, and I don't want to be religious, right?
Yes.
Do you look at Thelema as a religion?
Yes, it is in a way, but Crowley said something which actually surprised me because it's the thing that I've always maintained. He said, rationalists and scientists tend to dismiss magic and religion as just two forms of craziness. The only difference is religion is a bit more socially acceptable, but they're both just the same stupid thing, But actually, Crowley said that magic and religion are the opposite. They're not the same. And that is part of my theory, where I talk about there are four cultures in this world. There's the scientific, there's the artistic, there's the religious, and there's the magical culture.
Gotcha.
And I see in many ways that magic and religion are opposite, although they both talk about the spirit and the
same fundamental things. I gotcha. Yeah, so
religion is very much about people as a group working together with a shared belief system, whereas magic is very much about being an individual, standing apart, and what you value is not what the group says, which could be scientific or religious, but what you actually experience, what you find inside yourself, and what you find happening around you. And that is magic. And the aim of magic is to work on what is in you and also to try to bring about change in what is around you. Bringing these two things, these changes together. So it's a very individual thing. And in that sense, it is the opposite to religion. And so someone who says to religious people that they're practicing magic, that's quite scary. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of magic in religion. You know, the idea, say, the Catholic idea of you have this statue of a saint, and the people go and touch it and be healed.
They're being affected by magical principles. Yeah, but they're not practitioners of magic.
Yeah. You see, that actually is magic, and they accept it. They don't call it magic. No, it's religion. But the thing is that Puritans will see that, and they'll be disgusted. They'll want to smash that statue because they say that's idolatry. Some people are beginning to worship the statue rather than the God. It's meant to be a doorway into a God which is elsewhere, but they're actually worshiping the statue. Now, actually, that's fine. That's good magic. You know, you can make a statue and you can sort of bow down to it in order to make things happen. But from a purely religious point of view, that is magic. That is bad.
I gotcha.
But you see how the things sort of shade together, you know.
So you take the chaos magician. Well, I don't want to say chaos magic because I'm not sure chaos. I'm still trying to understand chaos magic. But let me just ask this question. So as a magician, when you see the works of, and I'm going to use just a little bit of jargon here, but hopefully most people are familiar with it, things like the Golden Dawn, where they use Abrahamic gods like Jehovah and Yod-Heh-Vav, and then they get into the Egyptian gods and the later stuff, and then you've got another religion, religions that talk about Jehovah, okay, and then other religions that talk about Brahma, right? So they're all worshiping this one God they believe in, or this one subset of gods. Where are you saying that as a magician, you understand inertly that Jehovah, Brahma, Ahura Mazda, all of these things, Nuit and Thelema, all of these things represent some form of God?
Yes. And if I could slip into a bit of jargon, my last video, I explored the idea of egregores. And egregores are sort of like thought forms which can be built up by people concentrating on something. And I gave the example of the hippie egregore, which began, in the 60s, where a lot of people of my generation began to think in terms of pacifism. We were all around us was the Cold War and everything, and everyone was afraid that the world was going to end. We began to think in terms of make love, not war, pacifism, and it built up this sort of thought form which became hippie. And the bigger it got, the more people saw it and joined in. Now, the idea is that some of these thought forms are out there. These egregores are already out there. And if people have been worshipping a god for thousands or hundreds of years, then it's like there's this great powerful thought form is out there. And it's like an energy which you can work with or you can tap into. You can pump it up more by worshipping it, or else you can sort of call on it for help or whatever. And so all these gods are like egregores. They're things that are out there. Now, if you work with one of them, say you get into Jehovah, and you pray to Jehovah, and it makes a big difference in your life. That discipline and everything changed it. It's very easy to then decide that Jehovah is the one God. And you cast off all the others must therefore be false. But the magician is more likely to say, Jehovah is just one of many forms of God. In some ways, it's easier to say there are many faces of God, like a faceted diamond. Now, if you think of the Christian Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, does that mean that Christians worship three different gods? No, in a sense, they can see them as separate, and yet they're all one. And so, in a similar way, the magician could say, look, all these gods, really there is just the one God, but he takes all these different forms, and it's like different faces. So, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay, as you say, there's Brahmin, there's Jehovah, and so on and so forth. So, you can work with them, and you can work with them in a religious way, where you're praying and subjugating yourself to that God, or you can work in a more magical way, where you form a relationship with that God and you use the energy of that God. And that's the sort of thing that, in the Golden Dawn they're doing. Now, the difference with chaos magic is the chaos magician says, you don't have to use a traditional deity, because the chaos magician says we can build our own egregores, or use something which is already in the world, something like the Muppet Show. There's millions of people around the world who were brought up with the Muppet Show, and they are very fond of Big Bird. So Big Bird is like this great thought form out there. And so a chaos magician says, why not invoke Big Bird to do this piece of magic? A popular one is Count Dracula. I'm going to, which is like a myth which is known all over the world. It's a very powerful myth, and now there's a whole thing about vampire films and things like that. A chaos magician says, I could invoke the vampire for its power of its power and strength of the vampire. I can invoke it to do something. So really, to get back to what you're saying, yes, there are all these gods, and a lot of traditional magic tends to line up with a certain set of gods to tap into that power. But chaos magic really says it isn't so much the specific god, it's the whole process of recognizing that there are these great centers of power out there, and you can actually build them up yourself if you want to. But what you're doing is you're working with these powers, and it's less important which one it is, as the fact that you know what you're doing and you're knowing how to build up power and work with it.
Well, okay. So what about, I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry, but I have to take a break. I've got to make up for this. It'll be a very short one. I wanted to ask you about things like faith as well, because I will tell you about an experience about that when we come back, and how that it's actually helped things like magic in my life. We'll be right back. Only got a few minutes left with Ramsey Dukes. This has been a great conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? Cannasense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. Cannasense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the cost, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and Cannasense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com.
Lighting the Void is proud to announce Mind and Magic's Protection and Defense Course for protection from magical and psychic attacks. This is not a joke. Magic practitioners are on the rise, and with that comes attacks from baneful or black magicians that try to harm or hurt others for their own selfish reasons. If you are not a believer in psychic attacks, then this isn't for you. If you are, and you want the power to defend yourself and your family and home, then I highly suggest you grab Freighter Xavier's Protection and Defense Course. In this course, you will learn how to tell if you are under attack from a natural source or if an individual is attacking you. The 4 forms of curses and attacks. How to remove self-imposed curses. The correct way to cleanse your home from negativity or malevolent entities. How to make your own holy water. What you should always keep near or under your bed. Herbs that banish negativity and promote purity. The most powerful banishing rituals on the planet. And for those that seem to want to harm you the most, how to put your enemies in a hell pit of their own making. You can also learn protection against shadow people and other entities. Or are you just in a bad planetary alignment? Even how to get rid of an enemy using a tic-tac box. It does not matter what your faith or belief is, this will work. Click the banner on the website at lightingthevoid.com or go to lightingthevoid.com/Xavier. Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, and tonight we're here with Ramsey Dukes, also known as under the pen name Lionel Snell. He wrote several books. You can go to ramseydukes.co.uk to visit the website. Also, Ramsey Dukes on YouTube. That's a great channel because he does short videos. He does videos. I don't really care about the time, and they're very cool. It feels like right now, like I'm talking to you right now, exactly how it feels. So I can only imagine what your writing is like. I can't wait to get into your books. But before the break, we were talking about Crowley, Thelema, the Book of the Law, understanding Magick, and from a religious aspect or how it relates differently to religion. But you brought up chaos magic and said that, chaos magicians, sometimes they don't use religion per se. They'll use other things. And I've even looked at things where Grant Morrison would use like comic book hero characters and things like that and be able to manifest things in his life. Well, I tried that, to be honest with you, and that didn't really work for me. And maybe it's because I have some blocks in my mind.
But whenever I have faith, there's something about the real faith or the real belief that it's there that makes the magic more powerful. If to give you an example, like prayer, if I say a prayer to a certain, like Jehovah, or ask guidance from an angel or whatever, it happens more frequently. And I don't know if that's because I was brought up in it and it's a program in my mind, or if there really needs to be the belief or faith in what you're doing. It's kind of a perplexing thought, actually, when I would think about it.
Yes, faith is very fundamental to religion. And it doesn't mean that all religious people are automatically faithful. Very often, an important part of growing up in religion is the crisis of faith. You get quite a lot of very great Christians, for example, who say something like, when my daughter died of cancer, I just lost my faith. God was dead for me, and right. I had to get that back. So, faith is very fundamental. It's something you aspire to in religion. And the funny thing is that in science, it's almost automatic. A scientist, although he will say, of course, we don't know the whole truth, a scientist in a very fundamental way has huge faith in the reality of science. If you, let's say it's announced scientifically, research has shown that, let's just invent something, research has shown that decaffeinated coffee is more likely to cause cancer. Now, if you said something stupid like, well, how do we know that the people who did that weren't under the power of a wicked magician who is making them believe that? Scientists would say, well, that's rubbish, that's nonsense. Now, it's not actually impossible, is it? But he has such a clear idea of what is real in the world and what isn't, that actually it's like a scientist has absolute faith that a religious person would really love to have that solid faith. But the funny thing is, when you come into magic, belief really means something different. If you say to someone, do you believe in fairies? Are you saying to them, do you think fairies are really, really true? They're out there. Now, to give an example, if you go to tarot reading, you can get a television program, where they talk about the tarot, and the tarot reader says, yes, this encapsulates the ancient wisdom of the ancient Egyptians. All the old symbolism is there, or whatever. And then you get a historian who says, well, actually, there was no mention of the tarot before the Middle Ages. It's a recent invention. It came from just a gambling deck that gypsies used, or something like that. Now, people tend to say, oh, well, that proves that tarot is nonsense. But it isn't like that. Magical belief is more like artistic acceptance. If you took that skeptic who says there's nothing in the tarot, it's just something that was created so many hundred years ago. If you took that skeptic to see a play by Shakespeare, like Hamlet, and he stood up and said, in the audience said, stop, this is a fraud. That person on the stage isn't really the Prince of Denmark. He's just an actor pretending to be. This whole thing is a fake. It isn't even based on historical fact. People wouldn't say, oh, wow, you're right. They would say, God, that man's an idiot. Now, on the other hand, if he says to the tarot reader, that's got nothing to do with ancient Egyptian wisdom, it's just an old pack of fortune-telling cards, people say, oh, right, yeah, he knows his history, that's true. But actually, the belief that you start with in magic is more like the artistic thing, you've allowing it to be true. You say, I've got this pack of cards, I don't know if it's nonsense or not, but I'm going to go through a tarot reading in the way you go to the theater, I'm going to put aside my skepticism. I'm just going to see what happens in an open mind. And what typically happens is you get a reading with one or two very interesting points in it, which are actually helpful. Now, that means that you're opening up to magic in the way I described earlier. But the thing is that at some point, it becomes so good that people say, now it's proved to me that the tarot is real. But actually, at that point, they're beginning to stop being like magicians. They're beginning to be more like religious people or scientists who found a new formula, because they're beginning to believe in it in an absolute sense. And it's really, you're more of a magician when you're open-minded and are prepared to explore. Because someone who's made up their mind that the tarot is the truth is very likely to say, well, now I know that tarot is the truth. I no longer believe in astrology because that's different. It's based on a different system. Or the I Ching is just a Chinese thing, because there is only one truth, and that's the tarot. And at that point, you've really become more like a religious thinker. You've stopped being a real magician, because a real magician can use the tarot one day, the I Ching next day. He can move between these different things. Instead, some people, they get set in their ways and their belief becomes rigid. It becomes like a faith rather than a power which you can give to things.
Gotcha.
You see, when you go into the theater and sort of accept, you're giving a gift of belief to that theater. And it may be a lousy play, or with that gift of belief, you can come away and say, wow, that play changed my life. And it's the same thing with a tarot reading or a clairvoyant reading. You give the gift of belief to it, and then you come away saying, wow, that was amazing. Now, it doesn't mean you've put your rational mind away. All you've done is you've told your rational mind to wait. Instead of telling me that I mustn't do this because it isn't true, wait and see what happens. And then when you get your reading, you then look at it in a rational way and say, actually, that is very good advice. I don't go along with this bit, but that's good advice. This bit is good. I'm going to go along with it. And you can use your reason after thing to sort out and sift what the results you get, but you don't use it to stop you getting any results in the first place.
That makes sense. It's just what I can't wrap my mind around, and maybe it's the fear. Maybe it's the fear and the morality that I worry about. Because when I started, and this is what I was wanting to tell you, when I started getting into this, I used the Golden Dawn, right? Just, Israel Regardie's Golden Dawn system.
Yeah.
I had a lot of other books, right? Because you start getting referencing all kinds of different books, trying to learn, the Kabbalah, the tarot, astrology, the Hebrew letters. Geez, it's so much, right? But the basic rituals, like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, things like the middle pillar, things like that.
Yeah.
My mind wrapped around it very easily because I was brought up Christian, right?
Yeah.
And I think they designed it that way on purpose. But things started to happen to me. Like I had an out-of-body experience where I saw myself sleeping. And it wasn't, it wasn't like a dream or a lucid dream. It was something way different. And I believe David Shoemaker calls it the ethereal body or something. I saw
etheric,
and I saw entities, just blobs. I had an encounter with certain hooded figures, and that's when I really became afraid. So I contacted someone that was in the order that I was involved with at the time, and still involved with in some way because they're my friends. And I said, look, you told me that this LBRP ritual is supposed to protect me. Or he said, well, I never told you that. But what's happening is you're lighting yourself up on the astral or mental plane, and you're becoming attracted to these things, and they're becoming attracted to you. It's okay. Don't be afraid of it. Move into it. And I said, okay. And I hung up the phone. Well, the next day, I really just kind of stepped back and was like, okay, maybe, and you brought this up earlier, maybe I need to slowly allow this into my life instead of trying to get my black belt in magic, so to speak.
Yeah. I think that's very true, yes. You see, say you've got a very strong Christian background. Now, early on, I pointed out that in a sense that's a prison. It says what cannot happen, what is not allowed. But you have to bear in mind it's also a great gift, because for you, those sort of Jehovah references, the things that fitted the Christian were very powerful for you. Now, someone who came in from a totally rationalist, skeptical thing, they wouldn't have that gift of power already there. They would have to sort of find some other way of sort of sensing the power. So in a way, although you were limited by that, you also had this gift of a sense of very powerful things which go right back in time, and many other people have that. So it's a gift, but it's also a limitation. Now, so what you want to do is you want to be able to, you mustn't say, oh, now I'm a magician, all that Christian stuff is rubbish, You must realize that there's a potential there that you can use. But as you opening it up to other things, well, I mean, like someone who's come out of prison, they come out of prison, they find it really quite difficult to adapt to the real world. Things have changed while the 6 years they've been in prison. And they're used to a rigid timetable of things. You're opening up into a much bigger world. And when people come out of prison, they usually need to be mentored for a while to sort of be reprogrammed to the outside world. And the same thing is true as you open yourself up to the magic world. As you say, you should take it carefully, slowly. If something is really frightening, respect your fear, because fear, although it's a limitation, is also something which protects. If you had no fear, as a kid, you would have fallen out of trees and killed yourself. Fear is like a police force, and a police force is a very important, useful thing in society. On the other hand, you don't want to live in a police state. It's a question of getting a relationship with these things. And that's very much a part of magical living. You form a relationship with spirits. Other people say that spirit is bad or that spirit is good, and tell you what you should do. But actually, like people, you form relationships with these spirits. Some of them you have to be very careful with and keep your hand on your wallet. Others you can trust more. But in the sense of Crowley's, do what thou wilt and be a true individual, you should never totally give yourself over to any other being, spirit or not. Even if you think it's far more magnificent than you should always keep a little in reserve. And I think it's in the Middle East, and it's probably a Muslim saying, they say, trust in God, but tether your camel. Because it's good to trust in God. But if to say, oh, I trust in God, so I'm not going to bother to tether my camel, is stupid.
Right.
You take some responsibility yourself as well. And so when you stepped back, that was a good thing to do. What I say would be wrong is if, having stepped back, you then tell everyone else you mustn't have anything to do with this because then you're making it into an absolute. No. Whereas actually your stepping back was a learning experience and potentially a growing experience, because you knew that you had certain limits for the time being.
Yeah, I've done quite the opposite. I've stepped back and I've talked about it a lot about, okay, there's something here that we don't know about. Because we, and in my community, there's a lot of conspiracy. They say there's the dark cabal, or there's, the Illuminati. There's some kind of, evil conspiratorial thing running the world. Now, no doubt about it that there are secret groups, secret societies inside the government, the Council for National Policy, people with so much money they can make phone calls and move the market. Very powerful people, right? Yeah. But the belief that we're in a slave system, like there's a huge belief that the earth is a slave system and it's a slave society, and everything's only going to be okay when we ascend and get into the whatever dimension. Where I'm starting to learn that I think that kind of whatever these beings are, whatever that is, it could be an egregore, right? Maybe. It just wants us to believe that. It wants us to believe that we have no power, that the best thing about life is what's after it. You know, they don't want us to know just how beautiful this life is.
Yes. Now, let's say that there is a slave thing, you know, that there is a power which is forcing us. Now, the best thing for that slave is for us to believe that we're slaves, because that means we can't do anything about it. Did you ever read a book called The Dice Man?
The Dice Man? The Dice Man, like Andrew Dice Clay, The Dice Man Cometh? No, sorry.
Yeah, all right. Well, I haven't read it, but I've been told about it. And there was a person who decided that he was going to let the dice decide what he's going to do. So, you know, wake up in the morning, and it might be like, if it's a 1, I'm going to do this. If it's a 2, I'm going to do this. 3, and so on. Or go to a railway station, you know, and I'm going to throw a dice to see what train I'm going to take. Now, that if we are actually, our minds are being controlled by somewhere else, that becomes a very powerful exercise, because you're really throwing yourself open to chance. And so the belief that we are slaves and everything we do, I mean, one form of it is the scientific belief that actually there is no free will. We are simply our DNA and our minds. We think we're making choices, but actually it's all dictated by our DNA and the synapses going off in our brains and what is around us. That actually is one form of this conspiracy thing. You know, we don't have any free will. We don't have any choice. And so it's very wholesome to do something like the Dice Act, to throw yourself open to total uncertainty, just to get a sense of the feeling of what it is like to make choices, free choices. So, it's the biggest danger, I think, of the conspiracy theories is that you make them become true by believing in them.
Exactly.
Now,
that's what I've been telling everyone. We could be bringing about our own apocalypse and our own endings, you know?
Now, if you could step back, they could be enormous fun. Now, in England, I think it was in the 70s, when they brought in compulsory crash helmets for motorcyclists, what happened, one of the things, I mean, it saved a lot of lives, but also motorcyclists began to drive faster, because there is a certain part of us that wants the thrill, the sensation of speed. But if you've got a helmet on, you have to go much faster to get that than when your hair is flying in the breeze, you know. So there's something in human nature that needs a certain amount of danger. We've evolved from creatures in the jungle where there were, you know, or in the savannah where there were lions and snakes and all these things. And really our lives are very, very safe now. And I remember a talk about Gnosticism on television, and they had a panel of experts, and someone put forward, you know, the idea of Gnosticism, that we, each of us, have the potential to become godlike. And one bishop said, you know, that's a very dangerous idea. And you know what I thought? I thought, wow, we need dangerous ideas. Our life has been made so safe that actually there's a big hunger for something dangerous and exciting. And
I've got like a minute till the network cuts me off. I'd love to keep this conversation going.
Right.
But
so some of these magic ideas are like going fast on your motorbike to get that experience, you know, which is great as long as you don't forget how to ride the thing.
Yeah, but I would love to have this conversation again in the future, and I really want you guys to go to the website, the YouTube channel especially, and go check out all of Ramsey Dukes' books on Amazon, RamseyDukes.co.uk, Ramsey Dukes on YouTube and on Amazon. And thank you so much for coming on the program. It's been a real blast all the way through. It's been a great conversation.
It's been a pleasure for me. Thank you. Thank you.
We do got to get out of here, guys. Don't forget, just don't copy this episode without written permission. And music was by Chronox, Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, and Professor Bones to close. We got to get out of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow night for Open Lines. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.